Soul Eater is that one anime that I will always be able to enjoy no matter how many times I watch it. Not only because of how much the series rocked, but also because it was what really pulled me into the world of anime. And with Halloween just around the corner, I thought, why the hell not? Let's make it into a top 10. A Grouch presents 10 facts about Soul Eater. But just a quick warning before I start, the facts used in this video were gathered from both the Soul Eater manga and anime, as well as the sequel anime Soul Eater Not. So even though I tried to minimize it as much as possible, there may be one or two spoilers in this video. Number 1. I thought, let's start this list right with some facts about the characters. Macas' name is actually an anagram for Kama, which means scythe in Japanese. The name Death the Kid is a reference to an old western gunfighter, Billy the Kid. Sid's name in Japanese is written Shido and spelled with the characters meaning dead and person, which is fitting for his current status as a zombie. Shitai, which is part of Stein's name in Japanese, means corpse, which is a reference to his corpse-like appearance. Mifune's name is a reference to Toshiro Mifune, who was a Japanese actor well known for playing many samurai characters in film. Erika comes from rearranging the syllables of the Japanese word kaero, which literally means frog. And Giriko's name is an anagram of the Japanese word saw. The witches Medusa and Arachne are both derived from women in Greek mythology with the same name. And the name of the witch Shala comes from the Arabic name of the star system Lambda Scorpii, which is part of the constellation of Scorpius. And while I know I probably already butchered those names, I just gotta say I can't roll my R, so don't make fun of me please. Number 2. The character formerly known as Soul Eater actually has more to his backstory than what was shown in the anime. For starters, his real name is Soul Evans, and he comes from a family of wealthy and famous musicians, which explains his talented piano skills, which we have seen throughout the anime. He also has an older brother named Wes Evans, and he is said to be a master at the violin. The two brothers share many similar physical features, but the most noticeable difference between the two are their personalities. Wes is a lot more formal and mature compared to Soul, which resulted in Soul feeling a sense of inferiority towards his older brother, and this led Soul to leave home and join the DWMA after he discovered his weapon powers, where he later changed his name to Soul Eater. Number 3. There have been not one, but 2 official popularity polls in which fans of Soul Eater could vote for their favorite characters in order to see who ranked the most popular in the series. The results of the first poll were shown in the manga chapter 53 and the second in chapter 100. And in both polls, Death the Kid took the top spot as most beloved character, which came as kind of a surprise to me because out of Maka, Blackstar, and Kid, I personally always liked Kid the least. Now, I'm not trying to say he's a bad character or anything, don't get me wrong, he can be a straight badass, and is one of the most humorous characters in the series, but I always just found Maka and Blackstar's personalities just a tad more likable. But another surprise did come from these poll results. The character Excalibur managed to rank 5th and 6th place between the 2 polls, which if you've ever watched the anime or read the manga, you'll know he can be, well, annoying to say the very least, both in and out of the anime. Yet his ranking on the polls show him to be more popular than the characters Tsubaki, Stein, and even Death himself. Kinda makes you question the entire poll, doesn't it? Number 4. What's the difference between the Medusa on the left and the Medusa on the right? Well, if you said lab coat, thank you, Captain Obvious. But no, really, there is a pretty interesting difference. Right there. If you jump back to the end of volume 4 of the Soul Eater manga, there is a short mini-comic which is known as Atsushi's Bar. This short series, which were randomly added into some of the manga volumes, starts Soul Eater's creator Atsushi Okubo, in which he drew himself discussing things with other characters about the series. In this particular one, Atsushi reveals that he purposely made it so that whenever Medusa appeared as a witch, her braid twisted to the left, and whenever she appeared as the school nurse, it twisted to the right. He did this so that if he were ever asked a question about the series characters discovering Medusa's secret identity as a witch, he could jokingly reply that because the braid is in another direction, the Soul Eater characters would not be able to tell who her true identity is. This was meant to be a small joke for his own amusement, but he ended up failing pretty epically when he made the mistake of drawing the braid in the wrong direction the first time Medusa was shown in the manga, which is pretty hilarious, I'm not gonna lie. But this error was fixed in the anime, so at least he does have that. Number 5. If you've ever watched the Soul Eater anime, or at least the first episode, then you are probably familiar with the character Blair. She was one of the first few characters introduced within the show, and she sticks out. But even though much of the fan service in the series is a result of her, and by most I mean 95% of it, much of her perverted behaviors are actually toned down for the anime. So if you ever thought there was a little too much Blair shown in the anime, or too little, as I'm sure there are some of those people out there, just know that the manga has a lot more to show. Well, at least that's some sort of motivation to get you to go read it. But this wasn't the only change made from the transition from manga to anime. Another difference between the two was the concept of the Kishin egg. One example of this is Black Star's father, White Star, and the Star Clan, who were destroyed for their consumption of human souls within the anime. However, this was not the case in the manga, where it shows that the Star Clan had only killed for money, and that is what eventually led to their doom. It is even stated within the manga and even the anime that only demon weapons are supposed to eat human souls. There are of course many other differences between the two sides, but for the sake of this video and trying to avoid spoiling anything, you'll just have to go check it out for yourself. Number 6. If you've ever entered a fan page or website dedicated to Soul Eater, or any anime for that matter, chances are you've seen something like this. Just some harmless fan art and creations that people upload and share online, right? Well, kinda. In chapter 72 of the manga, there is actually a moment in which the characters swap genders. I personally never knew this was a thing until I started doing research for this video, and being a Soul Eater fan for so long, I was just blown away by this fact. I had to include it in this video. So I do apologize, I did say I was trying to prevent spoiling anything for anyone, but hey, I did give you a fair warning at the beginning of this video, right? And as I'm sure you could have guessed, this part of the manga was, yet again, one of many that never transitioned over to the anime. Number 7. While we're still on the topic of genders, there's a bit of a mystery behind the character Krona, as we don't exactly know what gender he or she is. Let me explain. In the anime, there is a lot of use of male pronouns when referring to Krona's character, so you would think this is confirmation enough that he is indeed a guy. Well, in the manga, there isn't much to indicate that he is actually male. In fact, Funimation, which is the company responsible for creating the English dub version of the Soul Eater anime, admitted that they had to settle on deciding on one gender, as they felt that calling Krona simply it would be an insult towards his character. And if that wasn't annoying enough, Atsushi Okubo, the creator of Soul Eater, actually went as far as to confirm that Krona's gender is unknown, meaning that even the guy who created Krona is just as lost as everyone else. Number 8. Some of you may or may not know about the spin-off manga known as Soul Eater Not. It even released its own anime adaptation in mid-2014. This spin-off sequel, or rather prequel, follows the story of 3 other DWMA students and takes place during a time before the events of the original Soul Eater. And while the story doesn't exactly revolve around Maka and the original Soul Eater gang, many of the characters do make an appearance in Soul Eater Not. This prequel spin-off also does a very good job of explaining many of the characters' backgrounds from the original series. I won't go into too much detail, but it's definitely worth checking it out if that's something you'd be interested in seeing. Just a heads up though, even though there is some fighting and action going on, there isn't quite as much as when you compare it to the original Soul Eater. Number 9. There have been a total of 3 video games based on the Soul Eater franchise. If you didn't know that, well, you're probably not alone, as they were only released exclusively in Japan, meaning that if you are like me and live in the US, you would have had to buy and play them on one of the Japanese model systems. Which is a real shame, as Soul Eater is a very popular anime in the US. I don't know about you, but when I was all about that Soul Eater hype, I would have pre-ordered limited collector's edition expansion pack platinum pass the shiz out of those games. No, but for real, I probably would have bought them. Number 10. One of the biggest questions, I'm sure, that is left hanging at the back of the minds of Soul Eater fans everywhere. Where is Macas' mother? I mean, there is so much talk about her throughout the entire Soul Eater series, but that's it. It never really explains why she is absent. Well, being myself, I became quite curious on the subject and decided to do a bit of digging, and discovered something quite interesting. As it turns out, Atsushi actually had plans to introduce Macas' mother at the end of the Soul Eater series, but for unknown reasons, decided not to do so. After the ending of Soul Eater came Soul Eater Not, which, as I mentioned before, goes into detail about the backgrounds of many of the characters, but Macas' mother wasn't mentioned at all. It wasn't until its completion that Atsushi posted on his Twitter that he had plans of producing another manga in 2015, making fans everywhere believe that maybe now, they would finally be able to get some answers. Or not. You see, about a month ago on September 22nd, he released his first chapter of his new manga titled Enen no Shobotai, or Fire Brigade of Flames. So where exactly am I going with this, you ask? What I'm trying to say is that while it's great to see more content from a creator whose work is loved and recognized by many, it's pretty safe to assume that with the introduction of this new series, Soul Eater is done. For good. Meaning that despite all the theories and discussions over this topic, we may simply never know what became of Macas' mother. This is unless of course he decides to come back in the future and do another sequel, but that is highly unlikely. And there you have it, 10 facts about Soul Eater. Again, I know I probably mispronounced half of what was even said in this video, but hey, big shocker, I'm not Japanese. Even though I wish I was. Hopefully you guys did find something interesting in this top 10. I spent a lot of time searching for the best Soul Eater facts that I could find for this video, but I'm sure I was bound to miss one or two of them. If you know of any other facts that I didn't mention, feel free to leave it in the comment below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you could tap that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe for future videos. If you have an idea for a top 10, leave a comment down below. I make top 10s on just about anything. And with that being said, I'll thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.